Hi, art friend. Are you a great artist, but you just can't seem to be able to sell your artwork? Or are you selling your artwork and you're constantly discouraged by your low prices? If you've ever tried to price your artwork and then you end up drastically lowering the prices out of frustration, well, if you're doing any of these or all of these, then you are making at least one of the 5 art pricing mistakes. Over my 20 years as a working artist, I have seen a lot of art friends make these rookie art pricing mistakes. Thankfully, I've been able to avoid them, and I want to teach you today how you can also avoid these mistakes. So the first mistake is lowering your prices based on emotion or desperation. Right, Scrunchy? Desperation. Desperation's not good. Scrunchy here knows that this is a very common problem, and you want that sale so badly you feel like you can taste it. And we have all been there. Putting a price on our artwork can be a very emotional thing. We can feel like an imposter. I know from myself, I have felt over the years I get that imposter syndrome where I wonder, oh, should this really be happening to me, or what's going on, and we feel like, oh, you know what, let's just cut the price. Or we feel sorry for someone, they can't afford our work, so we're like, oh, let's just cut the price down greatly, and we'll just give it to them. And, it sounds like at the moment that might be the thing to do, but that actually is really not good for our art career. So when they see the prices and we cut the price down on a piece of art for someone we know can't afford it, then what we end up doing is we end up disrespecting them, and we damage our relationship with them. If they can't afford, if they like a large piece of your work but they can't afford it, well, maybe they can afford a medium size or a smaller piece. So the trick is to start with the higher priced items. So let's say they like a large original piece of art. See if that's something in their budget. If that is not, then move down to your smaller sized originals. And if that isn't in their budget, consider offering them maybe a print or some merch, something like that. And this is a win-win because you show them when you are working within their budget, you're showing them that you honor them and you're working with them on something that they can afford, and over time they'll come back to you as a loyal customer. So in an example, if you have, say, for example, a $2,000 painting, somebody loves it, and you know they can't afford it, and you say, oh, it's $2,000, and they say, oh, I can't afford that. You say, oh, I'll give it to you for, say, $100 or $200. That's what not to do. So what I'm going to tell you about now is a couple of different pricing methods that you can use to make sure that you avoid this mistake of just willy-nilly putting prices on things and changing prices. You want to make your price list and stick for your originals and stick to it. Never change this list unless you're moving slowly up over time. So let's go with the first one. This first method, especially if you're a beginner, this is a really excellent method. It's called the comparison method of pricing. How you'll do the comparison method is you're going to look at 5 or 10 artists that are similar to you in your style or your exhibition history and have a similar following or art reputation as you do. And you're going to be using their pricing as a benchmark. And this is the professional way to do your prices, especially, again, if you're a beginner. If this is the first sale that you've ever made, don't worry, I've got you covered here. And so if you're new to art selling, this is absolutely the way to go first, is this comparison method. So for example, if you're a watercolorist or you're an oil painter or you're a sculptor, you're going to be comparing with other artists that do the same type of thing that you do, and you want to compare the sizes of the artwork that they have, whether it's framed or unframed, if it's a painting, and then you're going to want to compare the reputation of that artist. Don't compare how talented they are, because talent usually has very little to do with this. What you want to do is the reputation, the sales reputation, and compare that with your work, and that's how you're going to be setting your price. So if they charge $400 for a 16 by 20 and they're similar to you, then you should be charging for that size, 16 by 20, $400. Now, if you're comparable artists, let's say you're further along in your career and an artist that's comparable to you, and maybe it's a larger piece, Maybe an artist that's comparable to you for a very large painting might be $4,000. Well, that's what you should be charging also using the comparison method, is you would also be using then $4,000 for that particular size. Another way to price your artwork is using the square inch pricing method. So you'll create your prices by multiplying the dimensions of the unframed art by a reputation factor, which is going to set your price. So in our example, in our 16 by 20 example, 16 inches by 20 inches equals, so 16 by 20 is 320 square inches. And then if your reputation factor is $1, then you'd be charging 320 square inches times $1 for your reputation factor, and that equals $300 retail price for all paintings that are that size. So no matter if you felt like it was a successful painting or not, or you thought like, oh, it came out really well, you're going to charge that same price. In this case, $320. So if your reputation factor, for example, is $12, let's go through the math on that. So you would take then your 320 square inches by $12 of your, which is your reputation factor, and that would be $3,840 for all of your 16 by 20 paintings. You can see that that reputation factor makes a huge difference in your pricing. And again, that goal is to start slowly and raise your prices over time. You never want to have your prices up here and then lower them. That is kind of the kiss of death of your art sales. You want to always be starting low and be realistic about where you're at in your career. Start low. It's better to sell at a lower price as long as you're making some money, and then build up that reputation and raise your prices slowly over time. So I follow that same rule, is I will keep my prices steady and even no matter where they're sold. And if I can't keep up with the demand for my paintings from the galleries that represent my originals, then and only then I will slowly raise up the price. So I'll maybe move it up 5% or 10% across all of the different sizes, and then lock that in place, and then again only raise it up again if I've got a problem where I can't keep up with the demand. All right, so we've tackled the first art pricing mistake, and stay with me because we have 4 more to go. This next one is going to be very interesting, and it's also a very common problem. And the mistake is charging a different price, whether you're selling it yourself to a collector or you're selling it through an art gallery. This is a very common rookie mistake, and the assumption here is that you're always the salesperson, forgetting that if somebody else is selling it for you, they need to get paid too for their sales efforts. So for example, an online gallery, a brick and mortar art gallery, an art auction like eBay, or like an artist store like Etsy, really basically any other time where you personally are not the art salesperson, you have to factor in that they're going to get paid for their work as well. And the sales commission that they're going to be taking can range anywhere from 13% for things like Etsy transactions up to 50% for brick and mortar art galleries, where they've got beautiful displays and everything is lit so nicely and professional sales teams. But remembering that they are going to be taking their sales commission, you need to build that into your price. So your retail price includes the artwork itself, and then the sales commission. Those two things together build and create what's called your retail price. And so it is a very common mistake to think, oh, my retail price is just the artwork cost, and then not including the sales cost in there. So the cost of the actual art and then the commission cost, or the sales cost, those two together form what's called your retail price. What you want to do to avoid mistake number 2 is to always have a retail price, regardless of where something is sold. Everything with a retail price, assuming worst case commission. So worst case commission would be that a gallery would sell it. Galleries typically take 40 to 50% of the sale price. So let's go through an example of how to do this then, how you'll set it up. So if your retail price at the gallery is, say, $1,000, your retail price, whether you sell it through Etsy or you sell it on eBay, you sell it directly to a collector, whoever you sell it to, it needs to be $1,000. You don't want to change that. That retail price is canon. Now, you might ask yourself, what if instead I'm selling, directly to a corporation or to a collector and I've got my retail price? Should I be lowering it or should I be taking it away? Well, just remember that in this case, you are the salesperson. You are working and doing the full transaction. You're collecting the payment. You're doing the marketing. You're likely doing the shipping, or you're having them come to your studio and take a look at your work, whatever it is, or they're doing it through your art website. You are the salesperson in that case, so you want to be compensated for that as well. Because making art, as we know, when you make art, you're just making the art, but when you're selling it, it's a whole nother thing that you're doing. It's a whole nother task, and you want to be compensating yourself for it when you're making that sale, or you want to be compensating your sales partners, whether that's an online gallery, a brick and mortar, whoever that is. You want to be honoring them and showing respect to them by making sure that they get their payment as well. And also a note of caution, if you are selling through art galleries, you'll want to be sure to not sell individually or separately to people. You'll want to work through the galleries that represent you. First of all, they can drop you for it, but also it's undermining them, and you do want to show respect to your business partners, the galleries, and have them do the sales for you. Another quick little note too about retail prices. If you end up framing your artwork, like this little painting I've got here, this is a 4x6 painting, and it's got a frame on the outside of it that I purchased. When you create your retail price, you'll want to price your original artwork. If you use, for example, the comparison method or you use a square inch method, but you want to treat your frame as a separate item and double the price. The reason for that is if you are selling, for example, through a gallery, so let's go through the numbers. Let's say that I charged $50 for this little tiny painting in here. And let's say I bought the frame for $50 and I put it in the frame and then took it to a gallery, and the gallery's going to charge $100 for this little thing, this little original work with a frame. Now, let's say that the item sells. Well, the gallery's going to take half the price. So a half of $100 is $50. So they keep $50 and you get sent through PayPal or through a check or something, you're going to get sent $50. You're going to look at it and you're going to be like, well, wait a minute. It cost me $50 of just the frame. So you're basically giving your painting away for free. So the trick for that is when you set your retail prices, you'll do your square inch method or your comparison method for your original art. But if you add a frame, what you'll want to do, to be sure to do, is double the cost of the frame. So if, let's say, I was going to charge $100 or $50 for this unframed, and the frame that I bought was $50, I'm going to double that price. So I'm going to charge $100 plus $50 is $150. So then when the gallery sells it, then I would be getting $75 back, which would cover my cost for the frame and would cover my cost for the painting. So that's just a little trick of how do you handle that if you've got frames, is you want to double your retail price to compensate for the idea that the salesperson is also going to get money for selling the framed art. And a little trick can be also is because frames can really raise the price up of things quickly. If you wanted to sell to someone, you could sell something unframed to them, have them go frame it elsewhere or buy a frame. Overall, they can save money and keep your retail prices lower. So the third rookie art pricing mistake that we can make as artists is to go in and to use the square inch method that I talked with you about earlier, using that square inch method on a wide variety of art. Wide variety of sizes of art. So what the important thing to know is that the square inch method really only works if you are doing just small works, or you're doing just medium-sized works, or you're doing just large works. if you are making everything from little bitty tiny ones all the way up through really large work, you have to have a factor that is going to even out the high end and the low end, and make all the prices make sense. Because if you don't, what will happen is if you use that square inch method and you're, for example, working on medium sizes, and then you make small art, what it's going to do is it's going to really drive your small art is going to be really underpriced, and your really big art is going to be way overpriced, and no one will buy it because the price is crazy, and your small work is going to be going like hotcakes, but you're going to be like hardly making any money on your small works because it's going to be way underpriced by comparison. So I'm going to show you here some illustrations of what you can do. There's a compensation factor, and this method is called the hybrid method. It's a complexity factor that you're going to be putting on here. This is the hybrid method of pricing I'm going to show you. So if you do like what I do, you're going to have nice even pricing through your whole range of tiny little work all the way up to your giant work. So let's go through a couple examples of what that would look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a complexity multiplier for the work. We're going to add it in on the smaller side, and we're going to take it away on the bigger side to even out all of the prices. So if your piece requires exceptional detail, or you have like super many hours of focus, you have this tiny little piece of work, you're going to add a multiplier. For example, like 1.5, 2.5, whatever it is that you're going to need to do to make it make sense. And you're going to put that into your base formula price across your very smallest sizes. And then on your larger sizes, you're going to use that same multiplier, say it's a 1.5 times or 2 times, 2.5 times, and then take that away from the big prices. So that way it's going to be fair across all your work, and you won't be overcharging anyone. So I personally use this in my pricing strategy. It makes kind of a bathtub curve of prices. And so my little honeys, these little tiny little paintings, are priced per square inch much more than my mid-size range, and my large work is priced per square inch much less than my middle-sized work. So what this does is it helps you normalize your prices and yet allow you to offer really tiny works and really big works along with your middle-sized works, and it allows you to have a wide price range. So the advantage of pricing like this is you can offer really small works in your originals for someone who maybe has a smaller budget, and if somebody wants to put a really large piece of work of your original in their home or their office, you have options to give them. Anything from very tiny up to very large. And galleries love that too, because you're offering a variety of price points. And so when their clients come in, they can get maybe small work, or they can get something middle-sized, they can get something large, and the galleries will love you if you can offer a wide variety of sizes. Now that we have reviewed 3 of the 5 rookie art pricing mistakes to avoid, let's go through the last 2. So the last 2 are probably going to be the most surprising or the most unexpected. They might be the most unexpected, but they are problems nevertheless. Rookie mistake number 4 is giving away too much free artwork, especially giving away too much free artwork at art charity auctions. Oh my gosh, we have all been there. Once you become known as an artist, you're going to have people coming to you as friends and wanting you to just give them artwork for free. And this can be a problem on many levels. And you might get constant calls from charity auctions, especially if you've already participated in 1 or 2. You're going to start getting calls and texts and direct messages and emails, people asking you to participate in charity art auctions. So what a lot of people don't know, and what we'll talk about here today, is that participating in these art auctions can actually be damaging to your art career, because the organizers will say, oh, you're going to get visibility and it'll be great for your career, it's a win-win. Well, in many cases, the artist actually ends up either losing money or losing reputation, or both in the art auction. So let's talk about how you can protect yourself and still be able to give back to your community, which is a wonderful thing, and I encourage you to do that. But let's talk about how you can do this safely. I am not a tax attorney, and depending on where you live, whether you're in the United States or outside of the United States, your rules and regulations, you'll need to follow whatever those are. But I can say that, for example, here in Iowa, let's say, for example, you had a $1,000 retail price on a framed painting. And let's say that now you want to donate it. If you donate it to the charity or you donate it to someone, you can't write that off on your taxes. All you can write off is just the materials. So the actual cost that you paid for the frame, and then the cost for the canvas and the paint and a little bit of wear and tear on your brushes and palette knives. That's all you can write off. You can't write off any of your labor. You can't write off your reputation. None of that can count in the price. And so it is a word of caution that you actually can end up losing money every time that you're, giving these things away. And yet people are thinking, or a lot of people are assuming, oh, it doesn't hurt the artist at all. It's great exposure for the artist. And by the way, the artist now can write this off on their taxes. It's like, it actually doesn't work that way. And then the other myth with that is saying that something is going to be valuable for exposure of the artist. Regarding exposure, it only is helpful to the artist if the item sells at auction for the retail price or higher than the retail price. Because if it sells for lower, then you're actually hurting your reputation. And I had a gallery owner, the city that I live in, this was years and years ago, he was upset because when this was early in my career, I started getting a lot of calls and things for participating in charity auctions, and I was giving my work and donating, I was feeling really good about it, but then he contacts me and says, hey, you know what, this is hurting my sales here at the gallery because people are coming in and they say, oh, I got something that size or that size, and I got it for, lower than what you're charging at the gallery. And he was very upset, and he actually was considering dropping me. So it's like, oh my gosh, what you don't want to do is hurt your reputation with the sales partners that you have, whether that's galleries or online galleries, brick and mortar galleries, if people, co-ops, wherever you're selling your work, if your art is selling at these art auctions for lower than the retail price, it actually is undermining your art reputation, and it could kill your sales at your galleries because people will be like, oh, you know what, I'll just go and I'll just get something at an art auction and I can get it for a steal. So here's how you can handle if people that are friends of yours come over and want to have your art for free or at an extremely discounted price. What you can tell them is that you need to lock your prices in order to, for the collectors who have bought and have paid full price, you need to protect them. So you can have them pay full price, and if you wanted to, you could give them some merch, or you could give them a sketch, or you could give them something else to, for your friendship. You could consider bartering or something like that. That's a way to handle the friends. But for the charity auctions, the way to go with that is pick just a small number, say 1 or 2, maybe 3 art charity auctions that you'll participate in per year. A lot of them are annual. And then what you can do is if somebody else contacts you, you can say, okay, I'm already filled up for this year. You can put them on the list for the next year. And that's a way to control the number of charities that you're involved with, art charity auctions that you're involved with. And then what you can also then do is set always a minimum price. So if something does not hit your retail price, the minimum price should be your retail price. So if you, for example, you put a painting up for the auction, let's say it's a $2,000 painting at retail. If someone doesn't bid on it for at least $2,000, the auctioneer will then say there's a reserve and they will not allow the painting to sell. What that does is that's the perfect way to protect your reputation and to keep your sales numbers where they are. All of the collectors who have bought your work, say for example that was a 30 by 40, for example, in size. All of the people have bought 30 by 40s and they've paid the $2,000. They're going to feel good about it because people aren't being able to get your work for free. Now, it always seems like there's an exception to the rule, and there is an exception here for the art donations. And that is if an art museum asks you to donate your work, you always want to say yes. That is something where that's always a win-win for the art museum and the artist. Donate your work to them. You can, again, you can't write it off on your taxes. You can just, the materials are what you can write off on your taxes. But the value that you will get as an artist for having your work in an art museum is something that goes on your art resume, and that becomes part of your art reputation. It makes it so that over time you're able to charge more for your work. That's always a thing. So if an art museum asks you to donate, absolutely always donate. Now that we have gone through rookie art pricing mistakes 1 through 4, we're ready for the final one. And the final one is one that is so common. It's out there. It's a thing. And here's the 5th one. It is overcharging because you think they have money. Oh, that is so common. I tell you, I have so many friends who do this. They see someone they think has money and they will take, for example, an 18 by 24 painting, normally is $500. They're going to try and charge $2,000 to this client because they think that the client has money to spend. Oh, this is a terrible mistake. You have to avoid doing this at all costs. Keep that price list that you've established, that we talked about how to do that using the comparison method of art pricing, or using the hybrid method, or the square inch method. These 3 methods that we talked about today, be sure to use those. Keep your price list printed out and ready to go. You can keep it on your computer, you can keep it on your phone, but you want to have that price list always handy. So if someone asks you what price something is, or how much is such and such size, you can look it up, and it's a non-emotional way. There's no knee-jerk reaction where it's like, oh, I think they've got a lot of money, I'm going to overcharge them. You can avoid doing all that if you just refer back to your price list. When we charge different prices for the same body of work because we think that the potential client can afford to pay through the nose, it's tempting to do, but it's a form of price gouging. It's unethical, and it's bad for the art career. And what we are doing is we are ignoring the value of comparable works that we've sold from the past, and we're overcharging, and it's never a good idea. So what we want to do to avoid rookie art pricing mistake number 5 is to plan out ahead. And you want to spend time researching and setting your retail prices. And if a potential client signals that they have a large budget, what you could do is you could offer multiple works to them, or maybe suggest a commission where you make a custom piece of art in the size that they're looking for. And the key here is you want that client to get their art fairly priced at market value. This is going to establish trust, and it fosters repeat sales, and it sets you up for a long career. And ultimately, 30, 40 years ago, people would have different prices for things. You could have, on one coast, you'd have the price. In the middle of the country, you'd have another price. On your own, you'd set another price. Those days are gone because everybody can now look on the internet and see what kind of prices you have sold for in the past. If you have sold your artwork in the past, if you're new to selling your art, you always want to remember to start low and move up slowly over time. That's how you build your art career. And original art is never supposed to go on sale, kind of like, end of the season clothing. It's not how it works. Original art's supposed to stay the same price or go up in price over the years. But when you set your strategy to give your collectors peace of mind by keeping your prices consistent and having your prices be realistic and comparable to other artists and in line with where the market is, then you know that your collectors are going to have made a good choice buying your art, and it's going to hold its value and only increase over time. So now I'd like to share with you the true story of Herb and Dorothy Vogel. And this is a true story. And this is the opposite of selling to the super rich. So Herb was a mailman and Dorothy was a librarian, both of them living in a tiny, tiny, tiny little apartment in New York City. And what they did, they loved art so much. What they would do is they would save all of their money. They were eating like really cheap dinners and not going anywhere and just focusing everything that they could on collecting art. And so what little money that they had, they would buy art with. So they would go to these free art events in New York City, and they would meet emerging artists, and they would get to know them, become friends with them, and over time buy some of their artwork, little by little. And they were buying emerging artists, so new artists, new to the scene. And they both, Herb and Dorothy, both had a very good eye for what was going to be something that was going to be really great over time. So what they did is, over these years, in their tiny little apartment, they started displaying their art from floor to ceiling, and they had so much by the time that Herb died in 2012 that they had even put some in their shower. They had so much artwork. But this art collection that they had amassed over time was so valuable that a museum ended up wanting to take the entire collection. And Herb and Dorothy became famous as art collectors, as a librarian, as a mailman. So that just really shows this is kind of an extreme example, although it's a true story. It's an extreme example to show and to prove that we don't necessarily, as artists, we don't know who it is that we're selling to. We shouldn't be picking like, oh, don't pick a rich person or a rich corporation or something. Everybody can have art. Everybody is worthy of having art, but it just might actually end up happening that the person that you sell to that doesn't seem like they have like this big fancy job or big position or something, they might actually end up having a very famous art collection. You never know. It's just, you never know. And so the point is that we want to treat everyone with respect. We want to give everyone something that they can afford, something that will add beauty into their lives. And then it really is a win-win for us as the artist and for them as the art collector. Well, I hope that this video today on how to avoid the 5 rookie art pricing mistakes has been helpful, and I hope that you will come back again and see me in the studio. So until next time, it's Dena Tollefson, and all my best to you. Bye-bye.